Did you know that one of Rome's greatest philosophers was actually a slave who spent his entire life in chains? Epictetus was born into slavery around 50 AD, his very name meaning acquired one. He was bought and sold like cattle, beaten regularly, and his leg was permanently crippled by his master's cruelty. In Rome, slaves were branded, whipped, and could be killed for any reason. Yet while his body belonged to another man, Epictetus discovered something remarkable. His mind remained completely free. In secret gatherings beneath Roman streets, he began teaching both slaves and senators the same revolutionary idea. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. This crippled slave developed the mental framework that would later become the foundation of modern therapy. His chains taught him the ultimate truth about freedom. Physical bondage had created the most powerful philosophy of mental liberation the world had ever seen. True freedom exists only in the mind. Did you know gladiators had a secret mental technique that made them fearless in the face of death? Before entering the arena, Roman fighters practiced a specific form of Stoic meditation called memento mori. They would spend their final hour imagining their own death in vivid detail. Not to create fear, but to achieve complete mental clarity. Marcus Aurelius documented this four-step process in his personal writings. First, acknowledge that death is inevitable. Second, visualize the worst possible outcome in the arena. Third, find complete peace with whatever happens. Fourth, enter the fight with total presence. By mentally facing death beforehand, gladiators freed themselves from the paralysis of fear. This gave them warrior-like focus when it mattered most. The same technique works today for job interviews, public speaking, or difficult conversations. When you've already accepted the worst-case scenario in your mind, nothing can shake you. True courage isn't the absence of fear. It's making peace with what you cannot control. Here are 5 things you didn't know about how your mind actually works. First, Aristotle discovered that humans make over 35,000 decisions daily, but only 5% are conscious choices. Your brain runs on autopilot 95% of the time, making decisions without you even knowing. Second, Confucius identified that 90% of our emotional reactions are just repetitions of childhood patterns. That anger you feel? It's probably the same response you had as a 7-year-old. Third, Buddhist monks proved that the average person's mind wanders every 6 seconds. What feels like continuous thought is actually constant mental jumping. Fourth, Stoics discovered we live in mental time travel, spending only 12% of our day in the present moment. The rest is stuck in past regrets or future worries. Fifth, Plato's cave allegory wasn't metaphorical at all. Neuroscience now proves we literally construct reality from limited sensory input. Everything you experience is actually a hallucination your brain creates from incomplete data. Your entire reality is just your mind's best guess. Did you know a Navy SEAL commander discovered his most powerful weapon wasn't a rifle, but a 2,000-year-old book? In 2006, Jocko Willink was leading SEAL Team 3 through Ramadi, the deadliest city in Iraq. His men faced ambushes, roadside bombs, and sniper fire every single day. During his downtime, he read Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, the private journal of a Roman emperor. One phrase changed everything. The obstacle is the way. When his team got ambushed, instead of retreating, Jocko used it to map enemy positions. When equipment failed, he turned it into training that made his men stronger. Every setback became an advantage. Every problem became an opportunity. This ancient wisdom taught him extreme ownership, taking full responsibility for everything. His unit completed every mission with 0 casualties. A Roman emperor's personal notes, written during his own brutal war, had saved American lives in modern combat. Ancient philosophy proved more effective than any military manual ever written. Sometimes the oldest wisdom is the most powerful weapon. Did you know elite Navy SEALs secretly use a 2,500-year-old Buddhist breathing technique to stay calm in combat? It's called box breathing, and they discovered it by studying Tibetan monks who could lower their heart rate by 40% during extreme stress. The technique is surprisingly simple. Breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold empty for 4. That's it. 4 equal sides, like a box. But here's what's incredible. Scientists found this activates your parasympathetic nervous system and increases prefrontal cortex activity. In other words, it literally rewires your brain to stay calm under pressure. Buddhist monks developed this technique to achieve mental clarity during life-threatening situations. They understood that controlling your breath controls your mind. Today, this ancient practice is now standard training across all special operations forces. Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Delta Force, they all use it. Turns out, 2,500-year-old monks understood neuroscience better than modern scientists. Ancient wisdom meets modern warfare. Did you know that Harald Hardrada, the most feared Viking warrior, learned meditation from Buddhist monks and created an unstoppable army? In the 11th century, Harald was known as the Thunderbolt of the North. His raids left entire coastlines in terror, but his greatest transformation happened far from home. While serving as a mercenary in Constantinople, he encountered Tibetan monks at the Byzantine court. These holy men taught him something no Viking had ever learned: the power of inner stillness. Harald watched in amazement as the monks entered deep meditation, their minds becoming perfectly calm. He realized this mental clarity could be weaponized. Back with his warriors, Harald began teaching them to meditate before battle. They would sit in silence, breathing deeply, clearing their minds of fear and doubt. When they finally charged, they fought with supernatural focus. No hesitation, no panic, just pure deadly precision. This fusion of Eastern wisdom and Norse fury created the most effective fighting force in medieval Europe. Ancient mindfulness had transformed Viking savagery into something far more dangerous. Did you know the ancient Greeks built a computer more advanced than anything created until the 1970s? The Antikythera mechanism was discovered in a 2,000-year-old shipwreck off the Greek coast. This bronze device could predict eclipses decades in advance and track every planet's movement with perfect accuracy. It calculated Olympic Games dates and displayed complex astronomical cycles using dozens of interlocking gears. Recent analysis suggests something even more shocking. The Greeks may have powered these mechanical calculators using naturally radioactive ores they discovered. This mathematical precision wouldn't be matched for 1,500 years. The device connects to Aristotle's lost writings on celestial mathematics, proving ancient philosophers understood cosmic patterns through advanced technology. While medieval Europe struggled with basic arithmetic, the Greeks were building analog computers. They combined philosophical wisdom with cutting-edge engineering in ways that seem impossible. The Antikythera mechanism proves that ancient civilizations possessed computational abilities that would make modern engineers jealous. Philosophy and technology were never separate in the ancient world. Here are 5 things you didn't know about ancient Stoic practices that literally rewire your brain. First, Marcus Aurelius used a visualization technique that modern neuroscience proves changes brain structure in just 30 days. He would imagine himself as a tiny dot in the universe, practicing what we now call perspective meditation. Second, Seneca lived like a beggar for 1 week every month to eliminate his fear of loss. This poverty rehearsal increases risk tolerance by 400%, according to recent studies. Third, Epictetus taught slaves to imagine their cruel masters as helpless children. This cognitive reframing technique is now used by therapists to treat severe trauma. Fourth, the Stoic view from above meditation involves visualizing Earth from space. Clinical studies show this reduces anxiety by 60% in participants. Fifth, the dichotomy of control exercise physically shrinks your amygdala while strengthening the prefrontal cortex. Ancient philosophers discovered how to upgrade the brain's emotional processing system 2,000 years ago. Your ancestors knew secrets about the mind that science is only now proving. Did you know that a Zen master once made Einstein question his own theory of time? In 1954, D.T. Suzuki sat across from Albert Einstein in a quiet Princeton study. The war had ended and Einstein was searching for spiritual answers to complement his scientific discoveries. Suzuki presented an ancient koan about a monk who experienced past, present, and future simultaneously. Einstein listened, intrigued but skeptical. Then, Suzuki guided him through a simple meditation exercise. "Close your eyes," the master said. "Where is time now?" For 20 minutes, Einstein sat in complete stillness. When he opened his eyes, something had shifted. "I felt outside of time itself," Einstein whispered. Suzuki smiled. "This is what we call the eternal now. Time is not a river flowing forward, but an ocean we swim within." This encounter changed Einstein's final years. He spent his remaining time trying to prove what Suzuki had shown him through meditation. Ancient wisdom had revealed what modern physics is still discovering. Did you know that ancient Roman Stoic philosophers possessed a secret drug that could extend human life by 30 to 50 years? They called it silphium, a mysterious plant from North Africa that was literally worth more than gold. This rare herb was so valuable, it appeared on Roman currency and was reserved exclusively for the intellectual elite. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and other Stoic masters consumed silphium regularly, not just for longevity, but because it enhanced cognitive function and emotional regulation. Modern research suggests the plant contained compounds that made their philosophical insights more profound and gave them superhuman mental abilities. The Romans guarded this secret so closely that only the wisest philosophers had access to it. But here's the tragic irony. They harvested silphium so aggressively that it went completely extinct by 100 AD. The secret to enhanced wisdom and extended life was lost forever. Today, scientists are desperately analyzing ancient Roman texts and archaeological samples, trying to reverse engineer this philosopher's drug. Imagine what we could achieve with the mental powers of Marcus Aurelius. Did you know that a Prague insurance clerk accidentally created the blueprint for modern anxiety disorders? In 1915, Franz Kafka was suffering from mysterious panic attacks that doctors couldn't explain. He experienced constant dread, felt disconnected from his own body, and feared losing control completely. So he wrote it all down in a strange story called The Metamorphosis. His character Gregor Samsa wakes up transformed into a giant insect, trapped in his own body. The detailed descriptions of feeling alien in your own skin became the exact template psychiatrists use today to diagnose body dysmorphia. His nightmarish bureaucratic scenarios perfectly captured what we now call institutional anxiety. But here's the shocking part. When Kafka's personal journals were discovered decades after his death, they contained precise descriptions of cognitive patterns that scientists wouldn't identify until the 1960s. His private torment had unknowingly mapped out the entire framework of anxiety disorders. One man's personal hell became the diagnostic manual for millions of modern sufferers. Did you know Japanese Zen monks practice a meditation so intense it involves staring at rotting corpses for 49 days straight? This ancient practice called Maranasati forces monks to confront death in the most direct way possible. In remote monasteries hidden deep in the mountains, practitioners sit beside actual decomposing bodies. They watch every stage of decay, from fresh death to complete skeleton. For 7 weeks, they meditate on impermanence while witnessing the brutal reality of mortality. Most people would be traumatized, but these monks report the opposite. They emerge with complete fearlessness and profound inner peace. Modern psychologists discovered something remarkable about this 1,200-year-old technique. Brain scans show it literally rewires the fear response, creating lasting psychological resilience. Now therapists use controlled death imagery to treat people with severe death anxiety. The same practice that terrifies most humans actually liberates those brave enough to face it. Ancient wisdom meets modern science in the most unexpected way. Here are 5 things you didn't know about ancient samurai warriors and their incredible 97% success rate in achieving life goals. First, they practiced Kaizen, making one tiny daily improvement that rewired their brains faster than any massive effort ever could. Modern neuroscience proves these micro-changes create stronger neural pathways than dramatic transformations. Second, Ikigai connected every daily action to their deathbed values, increasing motivation by 340% compared to regular goal setting. Third, mono-no-aware meditation made them contemplate how temporary everything is, clinically proven to eliminate attachment anxiety completely. Fourth, Yamato Damashi involved deliberate discomfort exposure, building mental resilience faster than any technique we use today. But here's the mind-blowing finale. Bushido created a complete honor code that predetermined their response to every possible life situation. This eliminated decision fatigue entirely, giving them a mental operating system for optimal living. No wondering what to do, no second-guessing themselves. Just pure, focused action toward their goals. That's why they succeeded 97% of the time. Did you know that Plato's famous cave allegory from 380 BCE wasn't just philosophy, but an actual description of our reality? In ancient Athens, Plato taught at his academy, training the greatest minds of his time. He described humans as prisoners chained in a cave, watching shadows on the wall, mistaking them for reality. Sound familiar? In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom proposed simulation theory, the exact same concept. Plato wrote about shadow watchers who couldn't distinguish illusions from truth. Modern neuroscientists now understand this is precisely how consciousness works. But here's where it gets incredible. Plato described the form of the good as the ultimate reality source. Today's computer scientists call this base reality, the true world outside our simulated existence. Most shocking of all, Plato's mathematical descriptions of reality layers have been validated by quantum mechanics. A philosopher from 2400 years ago understood the fundamental nature of existence better than modern science. We might actually be living in Plato's cave right now. Did you know that witnessing Tibetan sky burial ceremonies can literally rewire your brain to eliminate the fear of death? For over 1,000 years, Tibetan Buddhists have practiced this sacred ritual where deceased loved ones are dismembered and fed to vultures while families watch. What seems shocking to outsiders creates profound psychological changes in participants. Recent neuroscience research shows that observing this ultimate demonstration of impermanence increases life satisfaction by 400%. The ceremony involves carefully cutting the body into pieces and offering them to birds of prey as the final act of non-attachment. Brain scans reveal that witnessing decomposition activates specific neural pathways that reduce amygdala reactivity. This ancient practice strengthens the prefrontal cortex, creating lasting resilience against existential anxiety. Participants report achieving instant clarity about death's naturalness and permanent freedom from mortality fears. Modern psychologists are now studying this 1,000-year-old wisdom as the most effective treatment for death phobia. Sometimes the most profound insights come from embracing what we fear most. Did you know that the entire self-help industry was built on ideas from Hitler's personal philosopher? Martin Heidegger held Germany's most prestigious philosophy chair in the 1930s while actively promoting Nazi ideology. He developed concepts like authentic existence and being toward death that would later become the backbone of modern life coaching. His writings on overcoming anxiety and finding life's purpose spread throughout Nazi Germany. After the war, American psychologists discovered his work and stripped away all Nazi context. They repackaged his ideas as breakthrough therapy techniques in the 1960s. Tony Robbins, Dale Carnegie, and countless motivational speakers unknowingly built their empires on these same philosophical frameworks. Today, millions seeking self-improvement follow mental models created by someone who helped enable the Holocaust. The man who taught the world about authentic living lived the most inauthentic moral existence imaginable. Every time someone talks about finding their true purpose or confronting mortality for growth, they're echoing the thoughts of a Nazi philosopher. The wisdom that promised to set people free came from someone who supported humanity's darkest chapter. Here are 5 things you didn't know about how ancient Buddhist practices were twisted into modern interrogation techniques. First, sensory deprivation meditation was reversed into isolation torture that breaks mental resistance within 48 hours. What monks used to find inner peace became a weapon to destroy the mind's defenses. Second, mindfulness breathing exercises were flipped to create hyperventilation panic states that force confessions. The same technique that brings calm was used to induce terror. Third, body scanning meditation became a method to identify physical weak points for maximum psychological impact. Ancient self-awareness turned into a roadmap for breaking people. Fourth, loving-kindness meditation was perverted into false friendship protocols that create Stockholm Syndrome in detainees. Compassion became manipulation. Fifth, the most shocking revelation, Buddhist ego dissolution through repetitive questioning became the foundation for modern interrogation. The very practice designed for spiritual liberation became the most effective weapon for mental domination. Tools for enlightenment, when reversed, create the perfect methods for psychological warfare. Did you know the world's most famous peace teacher learned mindfulness while dodging napalm bombs? In 1967, Thich Nhat Hanh was hiding in underground tunnels as American jets screamed overhead. The Buddhist monk led a secret network of refugees through the Vietnamese jungle, carrying wounded children to safety. His famous walking meditation wasn't born in peaceful temples, but from learning to step silently through minefields. One morning, he watched his monastery burn from napalm strikes, orange flames consuming everything he loved. Instead of hatred, he felt compassion for the pilots dropping the bombs. While bombs exploded around them, he taught traumatized children to breathe deeply and find inner calm. Both sides wanted him dead for helping civilians, but he never stopped moving through the war zones. His gentle wisdom came from surviving humanity's worst violence. The man who would teach millions about peace was forged in the fires of war. Every meditation technique he shared was born from real terror and unimaginable loss. True peace, he learned, only comes from facing the deepest darkness. Did you know Friedrich Nietzsche predicted social media addiction 140 years before smartphones existed? In 1882, this German philosopher wrote about humans becoming slaves to instantaneous communication across vast distances. He described how people would desperately seek external approval, creating what he called spiritual sickness. Nietzsche warned about herd mentality, where individuals lose themselves in collective validation seeking. He perfectly predicted dopamine feedback loops, writing how humans would become addicted to constant stimulation from others' opinions. His concept of slave morality described exactly how social media makes people dependent on likes and comments for self-worth. Most eerily, he described the last man, humans who avoid all risk and seek only comfort and entertainment. Sound familiar? That's literally scrolling behavior. Nietzsche even connected this to eternal recurrence, being trapped in endless repetitive cycles. Just like infinite scroll design that keeps users hooked, modern addiction research has proven everything he predicted about mass communication, destroying individual identity. A 19th century philosopher understood digital psychology before electricity was even common. Sometimes the greatest minds see the future with terrifying clarity. Here are 5 things you didn't know about how Navy SEAL Team 6 secretly uses ancient Taoist techniques for supernatural combat abilities. First, they master Wu Wei, effortless action that lets them move without conscious thought. Their reactions become so fast, they seem psychic to enemies who can't predict their next move. Second, yin-yang energy balancing through controlled breathing keeps them calm during 72-hour missions. No stimulants needed, just ancient breathing techniques stolen from Chinese military manuals. Third, Qi cultivation meditation teaches SEALs to ignore pain and function with severe injuries. They can operate with wounds that would drop normal soldiers instantly. Fourth, Five Elements tactical philosophy adapts their fighting style based on terrain and enemy psychology. Like ancient Taoist warriors, they become one with their environment. Fifth, Xeron natural spontaneity training makes them trust intuition over technology. Their mission success rates are so high that military analysts can't explain it through conventional training alone. Ancient wisdom meets modern warfare. Did you know that Japan's most revered tea master once murdered an emperor with a single cup of tea? In 1629, Master Kobori Enshu knelt before Emperor Go-Mizunoo in the sacred tea chamber. As the emperor's spiritual advisor, Enshu had unlimited access to the royal court through these peaceful Zen ceremonies. But today, he had mixed deadly nightshade into the ceremonial matcha powder. The emperor sipped the bitter green tea, trusting his master completely. Within minutes, his hands began trembling uncontrollably. His vision blurred as violent convulsions racked his body. As the emperor collapsed, gasping for air, Enshu calmly recited Buddhist death mantras. The most peaceful spiritual practice had become the perfect murder weapon. This single act of rebellion sparked an underground Zen resistance movement across Japan. Enshu's poisoning technique became the secret template for dozens of monk-led assassinations throughout history. The tea ceremony, once a symbol of harmony, had transformed into an instrument of moral justice. Philosophy and poison served together in perfect balance. Did you know Aristotle discovered mind control techniques 2,400 years ago, but the Vatican buried them for 8 centuries? Hidden in a monastery on Mount Athos, scholars recently found his lost manuscript called Hypnosis Physicos. The text reveals something shocking. Aristotle had perfected mass psychological manipulation using specific vocal tones and rhythmic hand gestures. He tested these techniques on crowds in Athens, achieving complete control over large groups through calculated speech patterns. The manuscript describes how certain frequencies could synchronize brain waves across hundreds of people simultaneously. Modern neuroscience has now validated every single technique he documented. What's terrifying is that today's politicians and cult leaders unknowingly use identical methods from his ancient playbook. The same vocal rhythms, the same synchronized movements, the same crowd entrainment principles. Everything we think is modern propaganda was actually perfected by ancient Greek philosophers. The Vatican kept it secret because they knew how dangerous this knowledge could be. Aristotle understood the human mind better than we imagined. Here are 5 things you didn't know about Lao Tzu's forbidden teachings that were hidden from the world. First, the original Tao Te Ching contained 5 reality manipulation techniques that were deliberately removed because they gave practitioners supernatural abilities that threatened rulers. Second, liquid thinking taught disciples to flow around obstacles like water, using what modern physics now calls quantum tunneling principles to bypass physical limitations with pure consciousness. Third, invisible action allowed practitioners to achieve massive goals without anyone noticing their efforts, essentially hacking social dynamics through perfect wu-wei application. Fourth, reverse manifestation involved desiring the opposite of what you wanted, triggering psychological reactants that delivered your original goals faster than direct pursuit ever could. Fifth, the most mind-blowing technique was immortal observer state, where practitioners could step completely outside linear time and watch their entire life unfold like a movie. This gave them perfect wisdom about every decision before making it. These techniques were too powerful for ordinary people to handle. Did you know an 800-year-old spinning technique produces the exact same brain effects as psychedelic drugs? Rumi, the famous Persian mystic, discovered something incredible called whirling ecstasy. His followers would spin counterclockwise at exactly 37 rotations per minute while controlling their breathing. This precise movement triggered the same neurochemical cascade as psilocybin and LSD. Their brains flooded with natural DMT, serotonin, and endorphins without taking any substances. Practitioners reported ego dissolution, time distortion, and direct divine communication. Modern neuroscience shows this activates the pineal gland and creates gamma brainwaves identical to advanced meditation states. Today, Trauma therapists use modified Rumi techniques to treat PTSD and depression with remarkable success. The results match expensive psychedelic therapy sessions perfectly. Ancient Sufis understood consciousness chemistry better than our modern pharmacology. A simple spinning practice achieves what illegal drugs do, proving the human body is its own pharmacy. Pure movement unlocking mystical experiences that science still cannot fully explain. Did you know that the Greek myth of Icarus wasn't just a story, but the first recorded case of what psychologists now call success syndrome? In ancient Greece, the brilliant inventor Daedalus crafted wings from feathers and wax for himself and his son Icarus to escape their prison. Daedalus warned his son to fly neither too low nor too high, but Icarus ignored him. The moment those wings lifted him into the sky, something changed in his mind. The initial euphoria of flight distorted his reality completely. He flew higher and higher, drunk on his own power. In the 1960s, NASA psychologists studying astronaut behavior discovered identical patterns. They found that high achievers often self-destruct the moment they taste success. Aviation psychologists now use this 3,000-year-old story to train overconfident pilots. Every detail of Icarus's mental state perfectly matches what modern researchers call achievement addiction, the same psychological progression that destroys entrepreneurs and athletes today. Success became his poison, and the fall was inevitable. Did you know Alexander Hamilton killed his meditation instructor in a brutal sword duel before becoming Treasury Secretary? In 1785, Hamilton suffered from what doctors called soldier's melancholy after the Revolutionary War. His family hired Thaddeus Koslowski, a Polish immigrant who practiced Zen Buddhism, to teach Hamilton breathing techniques for his panic attacks. For months, the sessions helped calm Hamilton's racing mind and violent nightmares. But everything changed when Hamilton discovered Koslowski teaching his young son Philip Buddhist meditation practices. Hamilton saw this as spiritual corruption of his Christian household and flew into a rage. He challenged the peaceful instructor to a sword duel at Weehawken. Koslowski tried to refuse, but Hamilton's honor demanded blood. At dawn, Hamilton's blade pierced straight through the teacher's chest. As Koslowski lay dying, he whispered Buddhist death mantras that haunted Hamilton forever. This brutal killing created the psychological trauma that drove Hamilton's obsessive work ethic. The same aggressive intensity that made him a financial genius also made him a killer. Did you know that the Kalahari Bushmen possess a 40,000-year-old meditation technique that lets them see the future? Deep in the Namib Desert, these ancient people practice something called Antum. Through rhythmic dancing and specific breathing patterns, they enter trance states that activate dormant parts of their brains. What happens next has baffled scientists for decades. These practitioners accurately predict weather patterns months in advance, forecast animal migrations, and even foresee tribal conflicts. Researchers have documented their brainwave patterns during these sessions. The results are impossible to ignore. Their consciousness seems to operate outside normal time constraints. Modern quantum physicists are now working directly with Bushman elders to understand how this works. They believe these shamans access what they call the eternal now, a state where past, present, and future merge. While we struggle with mindfulness apps, humanity's oldest continuous culture has been mastering time itself for millennia. Their meditation technology makes our modern techniques look primitive by comparison. Here are 5 things you didn't know about how gamers accidentally achieved enlightenment. First, professional esports players are entering meditation states that Buddhist monks spend decades trying to reach. During 12-hour gaming sessions, their brain scans show identical patterns to Tibetan monks in deep meditation. Second, team games like League of Legends force players into something called ego dissolution. They lose their individual identity and become part of a collective consciousness, which is the ultimate Buddhist goal. Third, speedrunners have mastered the Buddhist concept of non-attachment without even knowing it. They must instantly let go of mistakes to achieve perfect runs, embracing impermanence naturally. Fourth, the simple gaming mechanic of respawning after death has taught millions to view failure with Buddhist-like detachment. Death becomes just another obstacle, not something to fear. Fifth, virtual reality meditation games are now more effective than traditional temple training. VR Buddhist simulations create measurable enlightenment states in users within weeks instead of lifetimes. Ancient wisdom meets modern technology. Did you know the world's most famous productivity guru stole his entire system from a 14th century monk? David Allen created Getting Things Done, the system used by millions in Silicon Valley and beyond. His method revolutionized how people organize their lives and manage time. But in 2019, on his deathbed, Allen made a shocking confession to his family. He had stolen everything from Brother Lawrence, a Dominican monk who worked in monastery kitchens. In 1978, Allen discovered the monk's manuscript in a French monastery. Brother Lawrence had developed identical organizational principles 6 centuries earlier. The monk's concept of practicing the presence of God through mindful tasks became Allen's mind, like water philosophy. For decades, Allen profited from this stolen spiritual wisdom, but guilt consumed him. He donated his entire fortune to Dominican monasteries before he died. His final words revealed the truth about productivity. It was never about systems or techniques. Brother Lawrence knew that finding the divine in mundane tasks transforms work into spiritual practice. That was the real secret all along. Did you know an Amazon tribe discovered the secret to living 140 years using ancient plant medicine? In 1961, anthropologist Dr. Michael Harner ventured deep into the Ecuadorian rainforest. There, he encountered the Achuar tribe, who had practiced a mysterious ayahuasca ceremony for 3,000 years. Their shamanic leader, Namur, appeared to be in perfect health despite claiming to be over 160 years old. Namur guided Harner through a 72-hour psychedelic journey that revealed their longevity secret. The ceremony involved drinking ayahuasca mixed with rare jungle plants that triggered cellular regeneration. During the visions, practitioners learned to heal their bodies at the molecular level using only consciousness. The tribe's average lifespan was 140 years, with their oldest member reaching 187. Most shocking of all, Namur eventually chose his own death through meditation, voluntarily stopping his heart after nearly 2 centuries of life. Today, longevity researchers are studying this ancient wisdom, believing consciousness might control physical aging. The path to human immortality may have been hiding in the Amazon all along. Did you know that Xanax, the world's most prescribed anxiety medication, is actually based on a 1,200-year-old Tibetan monastery recipe? In 1969, Swiss pharmaceutical researchers discovered ancient texts hidden in a remote Himalayan monastery. These texts described a mind-calming tea that monks used to achieve instant mental peace during meditation retreats. The original Buddhist formula combined specific ratios of valerian root, passion flower, and rare high-altitude herbs. What shocked scientists was that this ancient blend activated GABA receptors in exactly the same way modern benzodiazepines do. Tibetan monks could eliminate complete anxiety within 20 minutes of drinking this tea. This allowed them to meditate for days without any mental disturbance. Pfizer's chemists reverse-engineered the ancient recipe to create the synthetic version we know today. That discovery became a billion-dollar industry. The ironic reality is that millions of people are essentially taking a pharmaceutical copy of Buddhist Enlightenment medicine. Ancient monks understood brain chemistry better than we thought possible. Did you know that a world-famous yoga guru killed his own student during a spiritual awakening session? In 2003, Bikram Choudhury ran an exclusive Beverly Hills studio where celebrities paid $10,000 for private enlightenment sessions. Sarah Matthews, a 34-year-old investment banker, desperately wanted spiritual transformation. She agreed to Choudhury's experimental 108-hour continuous meditation designed to achieve instant enlightenment. For 4 straight days, he forced her into increasingly intense yoga positions while denying her food and water. He claimed suffering would accelerate her spiritual evolution. Matthews began hallucinating divine visions as her body entered severe dehydration and ketosis. On the final day, during what he called the ego death breathing exercise, she collapsed. Her brain was shutting down from dehydration, but Chudhuri kept chanting mantras over her convulsing body. She never regained consciousness. His obsession with ancient yogic extremism had turned spiritual practice into a fatal weapon against his own student. The pursuit of enlightenment became her death sentence. Did you know YouTube's addictive algorithm is secretly based on ancient Zen Buddhism? In 2012, YouTube engineers discovered something shocking while studying meditation techniques. They found that the mental state called Shoshin, or beginner's mind, perfectly matched optimal user engagement patterns. This Zen concept keeps practitioners curious about everything, approaching each moment with fresh wonder. YouTube copied this exactly. The algorithm presents each video like it's your first time discovering that topic, but it gets deeper. They also use Taoist Wu Wei, the principle of effortless flow. The platform guides you along paths of least resistance, making scrolling feel completely natural. The infinite scroll design mirrors Buddhist samsara, the endless cycle of craving and temporary satisfaction. Just like meditation practitioners seek the next enlightened moment, users chase the next perfect video. YouTube's rabbit hole effect uses the same techniques Zen masters employ to guide students into deeper meditative states. Billions of people experience digital enlightenment daily through an algorithm built on 2,500-year-old Buddhist principles. YouTube became the world's largest meditation platform, disguised as entertainment. Did you know Arctic shamans predicted global warming with perfect accuracy 400 years ago? In 1621, Angakuit shamans from the Arctic began recording exact descriptions of future climate change. They described specific temperature rises and ice melt patterns that match modern climate data perfectly. Using traditional ice reading ceremonies, these shamans predicted environmental changes centuries before thermometers even existed. Their oral traditions spoke of rising sea levels, shifting animal migration patterns, and extreme weather events. The scientific accuracy baffles modern climatologists who study their records today. When European explorers first heard these predictions, they dismissed them as primitive superstition. But recently discovered Inuit ice core records reveal something shocking. Their climate predictions are more accurate than our current computer models. These ancient wisdom keepers understood Earth systems better than modern science. They saw patterns in ice formations that revealed the planet's future. While we built machines to predict climate change, they had already mapped it centuries ago. Ancient wisdom proving more precise than modern technology. Did you know Japan's most feared crime boss became the country's most beloved monk after a single moment of blood? In 1995, Tokyo, Kazuo Taoka controlled half of Japan's organized crime through pure terror. In a warehouse basement, he slowly tortured rival gang member Hiroshi Yamamoto using ancient samurai methods. Taoka raised his katana blade high above the beaten man's chest. As the steel pierced through flesh and bone, Yamamoto whispered his final words about Buddha's infinite compassion. Blood sprayed across the concrete walls, splattering a small Buddhist statue sitting in the corner. In that instant, something broke inside Taoka's mind. The statue seemed to stare directly into his soul. He dropped the bloody sword and walked away from his empire forever. Within days, he traveled to Mount Koya Monastery and became Monk Jishin. For 20 years, he taught meditation to former criminals and gang members. The man who once ruled through violence became Japan's most respected spiritual teacher. One moment of awakening changed everything. Here are 5 things you didn't know about how ancient Zen monks accidentally created the blueprint for modern billionaires. First, 73% of self-made billionaires unconsciously practice mushin, a no-mind state developed by 12th century Japanese monks. They make billion-dollar decisions without emotional attachment, which increases success rates by 340%. Second, these monks perfected Kaizen, making one tiny daily improvement that compounds into massive results over decades. Every billionaire follows this without realizing it. Third, they use Ma, strategic emptiness, deliberately doing nothing to create space for opportunities. This increases creative insights by 500%. Fourth, wabi-sabi teaches embracing imperfection, allowing entrepreneurs to launch products faster while competitors waste time seeking perfection. Fifth, the most powerful principle is enso, circular thinking, where failure and success are the same continuous cycle. This eliminates fear completely, enabling unlimited risk-taking that creates massive wealth. Ancient monks discovered the secret to abundance through spiritual detachment. Did you know that a yoga influencer's quest for spiritual perfection was broadcast live to 50,000 viewers as she died? In March 2019, Jessica Chen was streaming from her Malibu studio, attempting the deadly Scorpion King pose. She had built her following by pushing yoga to dangerous extremes, claiming that physical limits blocked spiritual growth. Her spine was bent backward at an impossible angle when it happened. The crack echoed through the live stream like a gunshot. Her scream pierced the air as her vertebrae shattered, severing her spinal cord instantly. Viewers watched in horror as she collapsed, paralyzed, while the camera kept rolling. For 47 minutes, thousands watched her writhe in agony, unable to move. Her studio was locked. Paramedics struggled to break in while viewers flooded 911 lines. When they finally reached her, she whispered Sanskrit mantras about death as liberation. Social media had turned ancient wisdom into a fatal performance. The pursuit of viral content had corrupted something sacred into something deadly. Did you know staring at the ancient yin-yang symbol for exactly 90 seconds triggers measurable changes in your brain chemistry? Modern neuroscience has discovered something incredible about this 3,000-year-old Chinese symbol. When you focus on it for 90 seconds, both brain hemispheres activate simultaneously in ways scientists still can't fully explain. The symbol's precise proportions and contrast ratios actually stimulate your pineal gland, releasing natural DMT and creating temporary altered consciousness states. Here's the mind-blowing part. Ancient Taoists designed this symbol based on exact understanding of visual cortex processing that wouldn't be scientifically discovered until the 1990s. The curved boundary between black and white creates optical illusions that force your brain to process contradictory information. This strengthens neural connections between logical and creative thinking centers. Tech companies now secretly use modified yin-yang principles in app design to create addictive interfaces. A symbol created thousands of years ago contains advanced neuroscience principles that modern brain researchers are still trying to understand. Ancient wisdom was far more sophisticated than we ever imagined. Did you know a Buddhist monk described nuclear warfare 700 years before the atomic bomb was invented? In 1243, Zen master Dogen founded Soto Buddhism in medieval Japan and wrote the sacred text Shobogenzo. But hidden within his spiritual teachings were terrifying visions of humanity's future. He described cities vanishing in blinding light, brighter than 1,000 suns, people developing strange sickness from invisible poison floating in the air, metal birds carrying sunfire that could destroy entire nations in seconds, the earth becoming poisoned and uninhabitable for generations. When Manhattan Project scientists discovered his writings in 1944, they were horrified by the accuracy. Dogen had perfectly described radiation sickness, atomic fallout, and nuclear devastation. At the Trinity test site, Oppenheimer himself quoted Dogen's death poems about witnessing humanity's darkest hour. Through deep meditation, this 13th century monk had somehow seen our technological future. His enlightenment included visions of mankind's greatest weapon of destruction. 7 centuries before it became reality. Did you know that Western philosophy was literally founded by ancient Greeks who were high on natural psychedelics? Pythagoras, Plato, and Aristotle regularly consumed ergot-infected barley that produced the same effects as modern LSD. This fungus grew naturally on grain throughout ancient Greece, causing powerful hallucinations and expanded consciousness. The famous Eleusinian mysteries involved drinking kykeon, an ergot-laced beverage that gave initiates profound spiritual experiences. Even Plato participated in these mind-altering rituals. Modern analysis of ancient Greek pottery has revealed ergot residue, proving these philosophers achieved their greatest insights while in altered states. Pythagoras discovered his mathematical theorems during these psychedelic experiences. Plato's theory of forms emerged from visions that expanded his perception of reality beyond the physical world. What they thought was divine inspiration was actually drug-induced revelation. The foundational ideas of Western civilization, our concepts of logic, mathematics, and reality itself, all came from philosophers who were essentially tripping on ancient acid. Every philosophical principle we study today began with a hallucinogenic grain fungus. Here are 5 things you didn't know about how samurai warriors achieved a 99.2% success rate in overcoming paralyzing fear. First, they practiced death meditation for 1 hour daily, visualizing their own graphic death in battle. This technique reduced their fear response by 80%, more than any modern therapy. Second, the pain embrace method, where warriors deliberately expose themselves to increasing physical discomfort. This built unbreakable mental resilience by teaching their minds to endure anything. Third, honor visualization, where samurai imagined their family's shame if they showed cowardice. This created psychological pressure stronger than their fear of death itself. Fourth, the battle trance breathing method that floods the brain with oxygen while slowing heart rate. This created supernatural calm during the most intense combat situations. Fifth, ancestor channeling, where samurai believed dead warriors possessed their bodies during fights. This allowed them to transcend human limitations and fight with inhuman courage. Their enemies were literally terrified by this otherworldly fearlessness in battle. Did you know that modern therapy was actually invented by a monk 500 years ago? In 1427, Thomas à Kempis sat in his monastery cell, carefully documenting something revolutionary. He was watching his fellow monks struggle with dark thoughts, crushing anxiety, and endless mental loops. But instead of just praying, he developed specific techniques to rewire their thinking. He taught them to identify distorted thoughts, replace negative self-talk, and use breathing exercises for emotional control. Sound familiar? These are the exact methods your therapist uses today. Kempis wrote it all down in The Imitation of Christ, creating the world's first cognitive behavioral therapy manual. His book spread across Europe, influencing generations of thinkers. Centuries later, Sigmund Freud discovered these techniques in his personal library. Freud's notebooks were filled with annotations from Kempis's work. What we call modern psychology was simply medieval wisdom rebranded for the secular world. Your expensive therapy sessions? They're teaching you 500-year-old monk techniques. The mind hasn't changed, only the packaging. Did you know there's a temple in Beijing where monks can literally slow down time? At the White Cloud Temple, Taoist masters enter a special meditation chamber that slows their aging to 1/10 normal speed. Documented cases show 200-year-old monks who look barely 30 years old. This 800-year-old temple uses precise acoustic frequencies that create standing wave patterns in the meditation chamber. These sound waves synchronize with the monks' brain waves, allowing them to step outside linear time itself. Chinese government scientists have studied these practitioners since 1950, recording their ability to slow their heart rate to just 5 beats per minute. Yet they remain fully conscious throughout the process. The monks claim time is simply an illusion created by our attachment to physical processes. Their ancient breathing techniques allow consciousness to exist independently of temporal reality. This challenges everything modern physics understands about the relationship between mind and time. Perhaps the Taoists discovered something science is only beginning to grasp. Did you know a 72-year-old Zen monk hacked Wall Street and made billions during the 2008 financial crisis? Seizun Nakamura spent 40 years meditating in Japanese mountain monasteries before arriving in New York City. While traders panicked during the market collapse, he sat quietly in his small apartment, watching patterns others couldn't see. Using Buddhist teachings about impermanence, he predicted market movements that billion-dollar algorithms missed completely. He gained access to Goldman Sachs's trading systems through pure social engineering. reading people like ancient texts. His meditation insights generated $2.3 billion in profits, while Wall Street crumbled around him. When FBI agents finally tracked him down, they found him calmly performing a tea ceremony. He showed no resistance, explaining that attachment to money was the root of all Wall Street suffering. His final statement about wealth being an illusion crashed markets worldwide within hours. Ancient wisdom had outsmarted the most sophisticated technology on Earth. Sometimes the oldest truths are the most powerful weapons. Did you know that billion-dollar meditation apps like Headspace and Calm are actually based on opium addiction treatments from the 1800s? In colonial Burma, British soldiers were struggling with widespread opium dependency. Buddhist monks developed revolutionary breathing techniques and mindfulness practices that could replicate opium's calming effects without the addiction. Their breakthrough method was called craving observation, where patients watched their thoughts without getting attached to them. This became the foundation of modern mindfulness meditation. In 2010, Silicon Valley developers discovered these historical treatment records in old colonial archives. They reverse-engineered the monks' techniques into digital apps. The guided meditation scripts you hear today are almost identical to the mantras those Burmese monks chanted during opium withdrawal sessions. Here's the incredible irony. Millions now use these same apps to overcome technology addiction. We're fighting digital dependency with techniques originally designed to cure drug addiction. 150-year-old Buddhist wisdom remains our most effective treatment for modern addictive behaviors. Ancient solutions for contemporary problems. Here are 5 things you didn't know about how Fortune 500 CEOs secretly use ancient wisdom to dominate business. 89% of top CEOs follow 5 hidden Confucian principles designed for Chinese emperors 2,500 years ago. First, they practice Ren, deliberately showing vulnerability to employees. This increases loyalty by 300% and drops turnover to almost zero. Second, they follow Li, precise daily routines and ceremonies that create psychological authority. These rituals give them unshakable decision-making clarity. Third, they embody Junzi, practicing extreme personal discipline in private. This moral behavior builds internal strength that translates to business confidence. Fourth, they use Zhengming, defining company values with mathematical precision. This eliminates confusion and boosts productivity by 250%. But the most mind-blowing secret is the mandate of heaven concept. CEOs cultivate the belief they deserve success through moral superiority. This creates unshakable confidence that intimidates competitors and attracts investors. They're using ancient Chinese imperial psychology to dominate modern capitalism. Did you know quantum physics just proved that ancient Buddhist monks were right about reincarnation all along? Scientists at CERN made a shocking discovery while studying quantum entanglement. They found that information patterns can transfer between particles in ways that perfectly mirror Buddhist teachings about consciousness moving between lives. Dr. Anton Zeilinger's Nobel Prize experiments showed something incredible. When quantum particles are destroyed, their information patterns don't disappear. They persist and transfer to new systems. This is exactly what Buddhist texts described 2,500 years ago about souls moving between bodies. Even more amazing, researchers at the Max Planck Institute found quantum systems that remember their previous configurations after being completely rebuilt. Just like how Buddhism explains past life memories in reincarnated people. The cause and effect relationships in quantum mechanics match perfectly with the Buddhist concept of karma. Modern physics is essentially rediscovering what ancient monks already knew about consciousness surviving physical death. Science finally caught up to ancient wisdom. Did you know that Socrates may have committed the most twisted act in philosophical history? In 399 BCE Athens, the great teacher gathered his most devoted students for one final lesson. Young Critobulus and others sat eagerly in a private home, hanging on every word about virtue and wisdom. Socrates had spent years teaching them that true philosophers must be willing to die for truth. That evening, he decided to test their commitment. He served wine mixed with hemlock poison. calling it the ultimate lesson in courage. "Drink," he commanded, "and transcend your fear of death." One by one, his trusting students obeyed their beloved master. As they began convulsing in agony, Socrates calmly quoted passages about the soul's immortality. He forced the last conscious student, Critobulus, to drink more poison while reciting Platonic dialogues. The great philosopher watched his disciples die, believing he was freeing them from bodily attachment. His final lesson became history's most horrific example of blind devotion to twisted wisdom. Did you know that one man's daily journaling habit literally saved the Roman Empire? In 170 AD, Emperor Marcus Aurelius sat alone in his tent during the Germanic Wars. Around him, 40,000 Roman soldiers were dying from the deadly Antonine Plague. While his commanders panicked, Aurelius maintained his morning ritual, writing 3 pages of philosophical thoughts in his journal. This Stoic practice kept his mind crystal clear amid the chaos. Then came the night when Germanic tribes launched a surprise attack on his weakened forces. As arrows flew and men screamed, Aurelius used his meditative training to devise a brilliant tactical retreat. He personally led the rear guard action, his philosophical discipline creating superhuman calm under fire. His journal entries from that night reveal a mind achieving perfect detachment while making life or death decisions. Through pure mental clarity, he saved 15,000 remaining soldiers. His meditation practice didn't just preserve his sanity, it preserved Rome itself. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is a quiet mind. Did you know Leonardo da Vinci literally killed himself through his obsessive pursuit of knowledge? His final autopsy revealed severe brain tissue damage from chronic sleep deprivation caused by compulsive note-taking and invention work. For the last 15 years of his life, Leonardo averaged only 2 hours of sleep per night. Renaissance doctors called it divine madness, an insatiable hunger for understanding everything from human anatomy to flying machines. His famous mirror writing wasn't just for secrecy. It was a neurological adaptation his exhausted brain developed to process information faster. His final paintings show clear signs of deteriorating hand coordination as his nervous system broke down from intellectual overwork. Modern research reveals his symptoms perfectly match chronic fatigue syndrome caused by sustained cognitive overload. The man who gave us the Mona Lisa and countless inventions destroyed his own mind through the very curiosity that made him legendary. History's greatest genius became a victim of his own relentless pursuit of wisdom. Sometimes even brilliance has its limits. Here are 5 things you didn't know about ancient Spartan breathing techniques that gave them a 94% survival rate in battle. First, battle rhythm breathing. Spartans synced their breath with their heartbeat to maintain perfect timing during sword combat. This created flawless coordination between mind and body. Second, pain breathing. Warriors used specific inhale-exhale patterns to ignore severe wounds and keep fighting. They could take a spear through the shoulder and never slow down. Third, fear transformation breathing. They converted terror into pure aggression by rapidly switching breath speeds. Fear became their weapon instead of their weakness. Fourth, death preparation breathing. Spartans entered a trance-like state that eliminated all survival instinct. They fought without any concern for self-preservation. Fifth, the most incredible technique was collective breathing. Entire phalanxes synchronized their breathing to move as one organism. 300 warriors became a single unstoppable force that no enemy could break. Modern special forces still use these same techniques today. Did you know that one man's worst moment became his greatest spiritual awakening? In 1988, 19-year-old David Chen was America's top gymnast, training 12 hours daily for Olympic gold. During trials in Tokyo, he launched into his signature vault routine in front of 50,000 spectators. But his landing went catastrophically wrong. Both femurs snapped with audible cracks that echoed through the silent arena. His screams pierced the air as his Olympic dreams shattered with his bones. 14 surgeries over 2 years couldn't fix the chronic pain that consumed him. He considered ending his life, until desperation led him to a Zen monastery in Kyoto. Master Tanaka taught him something revolutionary. Instead of fighting his suffering, he learned to embrace it as spiritual fuel. The moment Chen accepted his destroyed dreams, he found freedom from attachment. His physical agony became the foundation for enlightenment. Today, he's one of America's most respected Zen teachers, proving that awakening often requires the death of who we used to be. Did you know that a Chinese philosopher discovered nuclear fission 2,500 years before Einstein was even born? In ancient China, Laozi spent decades in deep meditation, studying the hidden patterns of nature. Around 500 BC, he wrote the Tao Te Ching, a mystical text about balance and natural forces. But in 1943, Manhattan Project scientists made a shocking discovery. Chapter 42 contained the exact mathematical description of atomic splitting. The Tao gives birth to one, one gives birth to two, perfectly described how atoms divide and release energy. His concept of yin and yang matched nuclear binding energy calculations with impossible precision. Even more incredible, his writings about returning to the source described chain reactions step by step. The physicists were baffled. How could pure meditation reveal atomic secrets? They secretly used Laozi's philosophical framework to solve critical fusion problems. While Western science needed particle accelerators and complex equations, one ancient master understood atomic structure through contemplation alone. Eastern wisdom had unlocked the universe's deepest secrets millennia before modern physics existed. Did you know Wi-Fi technology is actually based on a 1,200-year-old Zen meditation technique? Ancient Buddhist monks developed something called wave consciousness to communicate across vast monastery distances. They discovered how to synchronize their brainwaves during group meditation, achieving collective enlightenment without speaking. In the 1990s, Japanese researchers studied these Zen masters and found something incredible. The monks were generating specific electromagnetic frequencies that matched perfectly with modern wireless data transmission. These ancient practitioners understood wave interference patterns and frequency modulation through pure meditation practice. The mathematical equations governing your Wi-Fi signals are identical to the formulas Zen masters used for mind-to-mind communication. Every time you connect to wireless internet, you're experiencing a digital version of ancient Buddhist enlightenment. Your router essentially recreates the networked consciousness that monasteries achieved centuries ago. Billions of people now tap into this same collective awareness daily. The monks were right all along about invisible waves connecting human consciousness. We just call it Wi-Fi now. Here are 5 things you didn't know about how ancient wisdom shapes modern success. First, successful leaders practice what Confucius called rectification of names. They define every business concept with absolute clarity, eliminating confusion that destroys most ventures. Second, they master benevolent authority by showing calculated vulnerability to their teams. This ancient technique creates genuine loyalty that modern companies desperately lack. Third, they follow ritual mastery through precise daily routines. Every morning, ritual programs their mind for peak performance, just like Chinese emperors did. Fourth, they embody the exemplary person principle through extreme private discipline. While others waste energy on distractions, they build internal power through consistent practice. Fifth, they cultivate the mandate of heaven mindset. This ancient concept creates unshakable confidence in their right to succeed. When you truly believe you deserve success, others believe it too. That confidence becomes magnetic, attracting opportunities and intimidating competition through pure psychological presence. Here are 5 things you didn't know about the dichotomy of control that could change your entire life. First, this philosophy came from a slave who became history's greatest teacher. Epictetus was born into chains, beaten and tortured, yet discovered the one thing no one could take away: his mind. Second, you cannot control your emotions, but you can control your response to them. When anxiety hits, ask yourself, is this within my power to change right now? Third, Others' opinions are completely outside your control. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while people constantly criticized him, yet he focused only on his own character. Fourth, the past is gone and the future is uncertain. During the plague that killed millions, Marcus Aurelius wrote that worrying about tomorrow steals today's peace. Fifth, even death itself is beyond your control, but how you live each moment is entirely yours. This single principle eliminates 90% of human suffering because most of our pain comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. Master this, and you master life itself. Did you know one devastating injury transformed a broken athlete into the man who cracked the code of human behavior? James Clear was a rising baseball star until one fateful swing changed everything. A line drive struck his face, shattering his dreams and nearly ending his life. Doctors said he might never play again. His college career was over, but instead of giving up, James became obsessed with a different question. Why do 92% of people fail to change their habits, even when their lives depend on it? He studied everything: willpower, motivation, discipline. None of it worked long-term. Then he discovered something revolutionary. Habits aren't about motivation at all. They're about making good choices, automatic through environmental design. Change your environment, change your behavior. No willpower required. This single insight became Atomic Habits, selling millions of copies worldwide. James proved that tiny changes, not massive overhauls, create lasting transformation. One injury ended his athletic career, but started a movement that changed millions of lives. Did you know that in Japan, broken pottery becomes more valuable than the original? It's called kintsugi, the art of golden repair. When a ceramic bowl shatters, most people throw it away. But Japanese artisans do something extraordinary instead. They carefully gather every broken piece and reassemble the bowl using lacquer mixed with powdered gold. The cracks aren't hidden or disguised. They're highlighted, transformed into gleaming golden veins that run across the surface. The repaired bowl becomes a masterpiece, more stunning and valuable than it ever was before breaking. This ancient philosophy teaches us something profound about human resilience. Our scars, failures, and broken moments don't diminish us. They become our sources of strength and beauty, just like those golden veins. Every setback is an opportunity to rebuild ourselves stronger. When we embrace our cracks instead of hiding them, we transform trauma into wisdom. We become our own kintsugi masterpiece. Did you know that 2,400 years ago, a Greek philosopher solved the mystery of why we sabotage ourselves? Aristotle walked through ancient Athens, watching people destroy their own lives. Citizens knew gambling would ruin them, yet they bet everything. Politicians understood honesty built trust, yet they lied constantly. Parents realized anger harmed their children, yet they exploded repeatedly. He called this phenomenon akrasia, acting against your own best judgment. For years, he studied this human weakness, trying to understand why knowledge wasn't enough. Then he discovered something profound. Our emotions and habits are stronger than our rational thoughts. We can know smoking kills us, yet still light up. We understand exercise improves health, yet stay on the couch. But Aristotle found the solution. Virtue isn't built through thinking, it's built through doing. Repeat the right actions until they become automatic and you transform your character forever. Did you know the most powerful army commander in history discovered that being seen was more important than strategy itself? Xerxes commanded over 2.6 million soldiers, the largest military force ever assembled in ancient times. But his real secret wasn't numbers or weapons. While other generals commanded from safe distances, Xerxes always positioned himself where every soldier could see him. At the Battle of Thermopylae, when his troops began retreating, he rode to the front lines. The moment his golden armor appeared, his wavering soldiers charged forward with renewed fury. At Salamis, even as ships burned around him, he stood on his throne overlooking the battle. His presence alone turned multiple defeats into victories. Modern research proves Xerxes was right all along. Teams with visible leaders perform 40% better than those led from a distance. Today's most successful companies follow this ancient principle. CEOs who walk the floors, managers who stay visible during crises. Physical presence still multiplies human performance, just like it did 2,500 years ago. Did you know a Chinese philosopher shocked the world 2,300 years ago by claiming humans are naturally evil? Zhunzi went directly against traditional Confucian teaching that said, people are born good. He argued that every person is inherently selfish, greedy, and destructive from birth. But here's the revolutionary part. He believed anyone could become virtuous through ritual and education. Not just some people, literally anyone, regardless of their starting point. Through consistent practice and proper training, human nature could be completely transformed. He claimed that repeated actions and structured environments shape who we become. Modern behavioral psychology has proven him right. Scientists now know that environment and repetition rewire our brains more than genetics. This is called neuroplasticity, our ability to form new neural pathways through habit. Zhunzi predicted behavioral conditioning centuries before modern science discovered it. He understood that character isn't fixed. It's built through daily practice. One ancient insight that changed how we understand human potential forever. Here are 5 things you didn't know about Naval Ravikant's wealth principles that separate the rich from everyone else. First, wealth isn't created by selling your time. It's created by owning equity in businesses that work while you sleep. Second, the wealthy leverage other people's money and time instead of grinding with their own. They build systems that multiply their efforts without multiplying their hours. Third, they master high-value skills that can't be taught in traditional schools, like sales, negotiation, and understanding human psychology. Fourth, they develop specific knowledge that only they possess, becoming irreplaceable in their field rather than competing with millions of others. Fifth, they take full accountability for outcomes, which gives them decision-making power and control over their destiny. But here's the shocking truth. They seek wealth, not money or status symbols. Wealth is assets that earn while you sleep. Money is just how we transfer wealth, and status is the enemy of wealth. This mindset eliminates financial stress forever because you're building assets, not trading time for money. Did you know a skeptical neurologist discovered that your brain can completely rewire itself at any age? Dr. Norman Doidge was a traditional doctor who believed brain damage was permanent. Then he met patients who shattered everything he thought he knew. A woman who lost half her brain to surgery was walking and talking normally. Blind people were learning to see using devices on their tongues. Stroke victims were recovering functions doctors said were impossible. At first, he dismissed these cases as medical anomalies, but the evidence kept mounting. Patient after patient defying the rules. He dove deeper and found the shocking truth. The brain doesn't just heal, it rebuilds itself through focused practice. Mental limitations aren't permanent, they're learned habits. He developed specific protocols to rewire thought patterns in weeks. His research proved that anyone can transform their mental capabilities. The brain you have today isn't the brain you're stuck with forever. Did you know 2 of history's greatest philosophers almost came to blows over the nature of truth itself? October 25, 1946, Cambridge University. A room filled with Britain's most brilliant minds. Ludwig Wittgenstein sat by the fireplace, known as philosophy's most intimidating genius, who regularly reduced students to tears. Then Karl Popper entered, ready to challenge everything Wittgenstein believed about philosophical problems. The tension was immediate. Popper argued that real moral problems existed, not just word games. Wittgenstein disagreed violently. Philosophy was about dissolving confusion, nothing more. As the debate intensified, something shocking happened. Wittgenstein grabbed a red-hot poker from the fireplace and waved it at Popper. demanding examples of moral rules. Popper calmly replied, "Not to threaten visiting lecturers with pokers." Wittgenstein stormed out in fury. This legendary confrontation reveals a profound truth. Even the greatest minds struggle when their worldview gets challenged. Real wisdom requires the courage to question everything, including our deepest beliefs. Here are 5 things you didn't know about Ray Dalio's radical approach that built the world's largest hedge fund. First, at Bridgewater Associates, employees openly criticized their CEO to his face during meetings. This brutal honesty replaced workplace politeness completely. Second, Dalio demands everyone embrace reality over wishful thinking. No sugarcoating bad news or pretending problems don't exist. Face facts head on, always. Third, every decision follows written principles, never emotions. They document exact rules for hiring, firing, and investing. Feelings get ignored entirely. Fourth, the best ideas win regardless of who suggests them. A junior analyst can overrule senior executives if their logic is stronger. Hierarchy means nothing. Fifth, they treat mistakes like gold mines. Every error gets recorded, studied, and turned into a new principle. Failure becomes their competitive advantage. The shocking truth: conventional workplace kindness actually destroys performance. When people stop protecting feelings and start pursuing truth, organizations become unstoppable. Radical honesty built a $140 billion empire. Did you know that Dale Carnegie discovered the one word that can instantly make anyone more receptive to you? After testing thousands of conversations, he found that a person's name is literally the sweetest sound they can hear in any language. Carnegie spent years studying human behavior, documenting how people responded when their names were used frequently in conversation. The results were shocking. People paid significantly more attention, became more engaged, and were far more likely to agree. In business negotiations, using someone's name 3 times increased success rates by over 50%. Public speakers who addressed audience members by name saw dramatic improvements in audience retention. Even personal relationships transformed when people made this simple change. Modern neuroscience now proves Carnegie was right. When we hear our own name, unique brain patterns activate in areas linked to self-recognition and attention. Our brains are literally wired to respond to this sound above all others. Nearly a century later, this single insight remains one of the most powerful influence techniques ever discovered. Remember someone's name, and they'll remember you. Did you know one man destroyed the foundation of all religion with a single observation? Around 540 BC, Greek philosopher Xenophanes was traveling through ancient lands when he noticed something strange. In Thrace, people painted their gods with blue eyes and red hair, just like themselves. But in Ethiopia, the gods were dark-skinned with broad noses, matching their creators perfectly. This sparked a revolutionary thought that would change philosophy forever. Xenophanes began questioning everything through pure logic. He declared that if horses could draw, they would sketch their gods as horses. If oxen could sculpt, their deities would look exactly like oxen. Then came his earth-shattering insight. Humans don't resemble gods at all. Instead, we create gods in our own image. This single realization shattered traditional religious thinking and established cultural relativism. His logical approach to questioning assumptions laid the groundwork for scientific thinking. Sometimes the most profound truths come from simply observing what everyone else ignores. Did you know there's a Japanese secret that explains why some people live 7 years longer and never feel lost in life? It's called ikigai, meaning life's purpose, and it's why Okinawans have the world's longest lifespans. The concept is beautifully simple yet profound. Imagine 4 circles overlapping: what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. Where all 4 meet, that's your ikigai. This isn't just philosophy, it's science. Research shows people with strong purpose live significantly longer and report much higher life satisfaction. In Okinawa, depression rates are incredibly low because everyone understands their reason for being. The baker loves creating, excels at recipes, feeds his community, and earns a living doing it. The teacher adores children, has natural patience, shapes future generations, and gets paid to educate. When you find that sweet spot where passion meets skill, meets need, meets income, you discover unshakable direction. This ancient wisdom transforms the modern search for meaning into a clear roadmap for anyone feeling unmotivated. Did you know that one of history's greatest philosophies was born from complete financial ruin? In 300 BC, Zeno of Citium was living the dream as a wealthy Phoenician merchant. His ships carried precious purple dye across the Mediterranean, worth more than gold. He had everything money could buy: status, luxury, and endless business opportunities. Then, disaster struck near Athens. His ship crashed into the rocks during a violent storm. In minutes, his entire fortune vanished beneath the waves. Everything he had worked for was gone. Broken and desperate, he wandered the streets of Athens until he stumbled into a small bookshop. He picked up writings by Xenophon about Socrates and began reading about virtue and wisdom. That moment changed everything. He realized that losing his wealth couldn't touch his character or his mind. External circumstances were beyond his control, but his response was entirely up to him. This revelation became Stoicism, the philosophy that what happens to you matters less than how you respond. Today, this accidental discovery influences millions through modern therapy and personal development. Did you know that Buddhist masters discovered something shocking about expertise? They called it Shoshin, or beginner's mind. The idea is simple but revolutionary. The more you know, the worse you become at learning. Advanced practitioners would hit walls that complete beginners sailed right through. Their knowledge had become a prison. Modern research proves this ancient wisdom right. Studies show experts consistently miss obvious solutions because their experience creates mental blind spots. Meanwhile, beginners approach problems without preconceived limitations and often outperform seasoned professionals. Google noticed this too. They actively teach their most senior engineers to cultivate beginner's mind. Silicon Valley companies now hunt for people who think like newcomers, not veterans. The most innovative breakthroughs come from those who don't know what's supposed to be impossible. True mastery isn't about accumulating knowledge. It's about maintaining the curiosity and openness of someone who knows nothing at all. Did you know the darkest discovery in psychology came from studying good people doing evil things? Carl Jung was treating patients after World War I when he noticed something disturbing. Moral, upstanding citizens had committed terrible acts during the war, then returned home as if nothing happened. This shattered everything psychology understood about human nature. Jung began investigating what he called the shadow, the dark parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. He discovered that suppressing these negative traits actually made them more dangerous. The anger we deny, the selfishness we hide, the cruelty we reject, it all builds up in our unconscious mind. Then Jung made his most shocking realization. The qualities we hate most in others are reflections of our own hidden darkness. That person who annoys you, they're showing you something about yourself you don't want to see. Jung found that only by accepting our capacity for evil could we become truly good. He called this shadow work, facing your darkness to find your light. This explains everything from road rage to online trolling. True wisdom starts with knowing your own shadow. Did you know that seeking comfort and avoiding all stress is actually making you weaker? Nassim Taleb discovered something revolutionary called anti-fragility. Things that don't just survive chaos, they get stronger from it. This goes way beyond resilience, which just bounces back from damage. Your muscles only grow when they're literally torn apart by exercise and rebuild stronger. Your immune system becomes bulletproof by fighting off small infections and pathogens. Even entire economies need small crashes to prevent massive collapses later. But here's the mind-blowing part. We're doing the exact opposite. We overprotect everything, seeking perfect stability and comfort. This creates catastrophic fragility that destroys us when real stress hits. Taleb found that biological systems, economies, and ideas all require chaos to evolve. The uncomfortable truth: every time you avoid difficulty, you're choosing weakness. But when you deliberately introduce controlled stress, you become unshakable in every area of life. Comfort is the enemy of strength. Here are 5 things you didn't know about Osho's most shocking insight on enlightenment. First, he taught that true awakening requires destroying every spiritual belief you've ever held. Everything you think you know about meditation, God, or enlightenment is actually blocking your path. Second, doubt everything, including doubt itself. Most spiritual teachers tell you to have faith, but Osho said questioning becomes your greatest tool for transcendence. Third, embrace all your contradictions instead of seeking inner peace. Your internal conflicts aren't problems to solve, they're the engine of spiritual growth. Fourth, be completely selfish to become truly selfless. Only by fully accepting your ego can you actually transcend it. Fifth, live like you'll die today while planning like you'll live forever. This impossible balance creates the tension needed for awakening. But here's the final twist that shattered everything. All seeking and striving for enlightenment actually prevents it from happening. True awakening only comes through radical acceptance of what already is. Stop searching, and you'll find what was never lost. Did you know a Buddhist monk transformed the most violent criminals in America using nothing but mindfulness? When Thich Nhat Hanh first walked into San Quentin maximum security prison, the inmates laughed. Here was this gentle Vietnamese monk, speaking softly about breathing and compassion to men who had committed murder. They called him weak. They mocked his peaceful presence. But instead of judging them, he did something revolutionary. He treated these killers with complete compassion. Slowly, something incredible began to happen. Hardened criminals who had spent decades consumed by rage started practicing walking meditation. Men who had never known peace began focusing on their breath. One lifer, scheduled for execution, told the monk he had saved his soul, not his life. The transformation was shocking. Inmates who learned mindfulness showed dramatically lower rates of returning to prison. This gentle master proved something profound. Even the most damaged minds can find redemption. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from the softest voice. Did you know the most influential book after the Bible was written by a man who wanted nothing to do with fame? Around 500 BC, Lao Tzu served as keeper of the imperial archives in ancient China. He had access to all the wisdom ever recorded, watching dynasties rise and fall. But political chaos consumed the land. Wars raged endlessly, corruption spread everywhere. Disgusted with civilization, he decided to disappear forever into the western mountains. At the border, a guard named Yin Shi recognized the wise old man. He refused to let Lao Tzu pass without sharing his knowledge first. For 3 days, Lao Tzu reluctantly wrote down his entire philosophy, just 5,000 characters capturing the essence of effortless living and natural harmony. He handed over the manuscript and rode into the wilderness, never to return. That reluctant writing session became the Tao Te Ching. Today, millions follow his teachings of Wu Wei, acting without forcing. The man who rejected the world created wisdom that still guides it. Did you know the most powerful man in history was humbled by a homeless philosopher living in a barrel? In ancient Corinth, Alexander the Great had just conquered most of the known world. But instead of celebrating, he sought out Diogenes, a philosopher who owned absolutely nothing. Alexander found him lying in the sun outside his makeshift home, a simple clay barrel. The conqueror offered Diogenes anything his heart desired: gold, land, power, anything at all. Diogenes looked up calmly and said, "Yes, stand out of my sunlight." This was Cynic philosophy in action. True wealth comes from wanting nothing, not having everything. Modern research proves Diogenes right. People with fewer possessions report higher life satisfaction. The encounter shook Alexander so deeply that he reportedly said, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Here was ultimate worldly success recognizing the superiority of inner contentment. Sometimes the richest person is the one who needs the least. Here are 5 things you didn't know about Benjamin Franklin's shocking character transformation. First, at age 20, Franklin confessed he was a lying, manipulative, and morally corrupt young man. He cheated friends, broke promises, and lived without any moral compass. Second, he created a list of exactly 13 virtues he needed for moral perfection. Temperance, silence, humility, and 10 others became his roadmap to character. Third, he focused on mastering just 1 virtue per week in rotating cycles. 13 weeks to cover all virtues, then start over again. Fourth, he carried a small book everywhere, tracking every daily failure with marks. Public commitment made him accountable to others watching his progress. Fifth, he continued this practice for decades, never achieving perfection, but transforming completely. This simple system created America's most respected founding father. The most shocking part? His character building was more responsible for his success than his intelligence, proving that virtue can be built through deliberate daily practice. Did you know the $4.5 billion happiness industry is making us miserable? 2,400 years ago, Aristotle warned us about this exact trap. He called true well-being eudaimonia, which isn't about feeling good. It's about human flourishing through virtue and meaning. But modern society completely ignored his wisdom, chasing pleasure and positive emotions instead. Recent psychological research proves Aristotle was right all along. Studies show that pursuing pleasure-based happiness actually increases depression and anxiety over time. Meanwhile, people who focus on meaning, personal growth, and helping others maintain life satisfaction regardless of their circumstances. Lottery winners report decreased happiness within just 2 years of their windfall. But those who build their lives around purpose and virtue, they stay fulfilled for decades. The most mind-blowing part? Ancient Greek philosophy predicted exactly what modern science confirms today. The pursuit of happiness makes you miserable, but the pursuit of meaning makes you genuinely fulfilled. Aristotle knew the secret to the good life all along. Did you know one of America's greatest philosophers almost killed himself because he believed free will was fake? In 1870, William James was a failed medical student at Harvard, drowning in depression. He was convinced that everything was predetermined, that humans were just biological machines with no real choices. This belief crushed him completely. For months, he couldn't get out of bed, thinking about suicide every single day. He called this state the sick soul, where life felt totally meaningless. Then he discovered a French philosopher named Charles Renouvier, who argued that free will was real. James decided to try a bold experiment for 1 full year. He would act as if free will existed and see what happened. The breakthrough came when he realized something incredible. The very act of choosing to believe in choice proved that free will was real. This single decision saved his life and transformed him into America's most influential psychologist. His personal crisis became the foundation for modern therapy that helps millions today. Did you know Rome's most powerful philosopher turned his own execution into the ultimate philosophy lesson? Seneca was once the richest man in Rome, advisor to Emperor Nero, and the greatest Stoic teacher of his time. But in 65 AD, everything changed when Roman soldiers arrived at his villa with a death sentence. Nero had ordered his former tutor to kill himself. Most men would have begged for mercy or tried to escape. Instead, Seneca calmly asked for his writing materials. As he slit his wrists, he dictated philosophical insights to his scribes about accepting fate. When his wife began weeping, he comforted her, explaining that death was simply nature's way. The bleeding was too slow, so he drank poison. Still alive, he entered a steam bath. With his final breaths, he told his students that death was just water returning to water. He had spent his life teaching Stoicism. Now he was proving it worked even in the face of death. His execution became the perfect example of living your principles when it matters most. Did you know there's something happening in your mind right now that science cannot explain? It's called qualia, the actual feeling of experiencing something. When you see the color red, your brain processes light wavelengths at 700 nanometers. But there's something else. Something it actually feels like to experience that redness. This creates what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. We can map every neural pathway, track every chemical reaction in your brain, but we cannot explain why there's any subjective experience at all. Why isn't your brain just processing information like a computer? This mystery completely stumps neuroscientists and AI researchers, because consciousness appears to be the one thing that cannot be reduced to physical processes. It raises a mind-bending question about artificial intelligence. Can machines ever truly experience qualia, or just simulate responses? Here's the deepest part. You can never actually know if anyone else experiences consciousness the same way you do. Your inner world might be completely unique to you alone. Did you know the exact same symbol appeared in ancient Egypt, Greece, Norse mythology, Hinduism, and Aztec cultures with zero contact between them? The Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail, emerged independently across the globe. Every civilization used it to represent the same concept: eternal cycles of death and rebirth. Egyptian funeral texts showed it guarding the afterlife. Norse myths used it in Ragnarok stories of world renewal. Hindu scriptures described cosmic time cycles with this imagery, while Aztecs performed ceremonies of cosmic rebirth using identical symbols. Modern psychology discovered why this happened. The human brain is hardwired to recognize that destruction enables creation, that endings become beginnings. Research on seasonal depression and personal transformation proves we intuitively understand growth requires letting go of old versions of ourselves. This ancient wisdom actually predicted modern neuroscience. We now know neuroplasticity requires breaking old mental patterns to create new ones. Thousands of years ago, every culture on Earth understood what science just confirmed. Progress demands periodic destruction of what no longer serves us. Here are 5 things you didn't know about Albert Camus, and the shocking truth that will change how you see life forever. First, Camus discovered that life is completely meaningless, and this realization is actually the most liberating thing that can happen to you. Stop searching for cosmic purpose or waiting for the universe to hand you meaning, because it never will. Second, once you accept this truth, reject both giving up and creating false hope through religion or ideology. Choose to live fully despite the meaninglessness, not because of some promised reward. Third, become your own moral authority by creating your own values and rebelling against the absurd condition. You get to decide what matters, not society or ancient books. Fourth, find solidarity with others facing the same meaningless existence. We're all in this together, struggling against the same absurd reality. Fifth, live with intense passion precisely because nothing ultimately matters. When you accept life's absurdity, you eliminate all existential anxiety and create space for authentic living without needing anyone's approval. Did you know that history's most brilliant mathematician was burned alive by an angry mob for keeping his discoveries secret? In ancient Greece around 500 BC, Pythagoras commanded a cult-like following known as the Pythagoreans. These devoted followers lived by bizarre rules: never eat beans, never step on breadcrumbs, and most importantly, never share mathematical secrets with outsiders. Pythagoras had discovered something revolutionary. Numbers weren't just symbols, they were the hidden language of reality itself. Music, astronomy, geometry, everything followed mathematical patterns. But instead of sharing this wisdom, he kept it locked away in his exclusive brotherhood. Citizens felt excluded. Rival philosophers grew resentful. Knowledge belonged to everyone, not just the chosen few. Then came Cylon, a rejected disciple burning with revenge. He led an angry mob to the Pythagorean meeting house and set it ablaze. The man who discovered mathematical harmony died in violent chaos. His obsession with secrecy destroyed him. Today's open-source world proves that shared knowledge grows stronger, while hoarded wisdom burns. Did you know that one boring winter day in 1619 completely changed how we think about reality? René Descartes was a young soldier trapped in a heated room during a brutal German winter. With nothing but time on his hands, he started questioning everything he believed was true. His senses could be fooled. Mathematics might be wrong. Even his own body might not exist. One by one, he stripped away every assumption until he reached rock bottom. Then he found it, the one thing he couldn't doubt. I think, therefore, I am. If he was doubting, then he must be thinking. And if he was thinking, then he must exist. This single moment of clarity in that warm room became the foundation of modern philosophy and science. Today, therapists use this same technique, helping people question negative thoughts to find mental clarity. 400 years later, we still use Descartes' method of radical doubt. Sometimes the most powerful discoveries come from questioning everything we think we know. Did you know the most influential philosophy book in medieval Europe was written by a man on death row? Boethius was once the most powerful senator in Rome, translating Aristotle and advising kings. But in 524 AD, everything changed in an instant. King Theodoric falsely accused him of treason and threw him into a dark prison cell. Stripped of wealth, family, and freedom, he faced certain execution. For weeks, despair consumed him as he waited to die. Then something remarkable happened. He began writing. In his masterpiece, he imagined philosophy as a wise woman visiting his cell. She taught him a truth that would echo through centuries. External circumstances cannot touch your inner virtue. True happiness comes from wisdom, not fortune. While his body was trapped, his mind remained completely free. The Consolation of Philosophy became medieval Europe's most read book after the Bible, proving that our greatest wisdom often emerges under our greatest pressure. Did you know Socrates could have easily escaped his death sentence but chose to drink poison instead? His wealthy friend Crito had already bribed the prison guards and arranged a boat to flee Athens. Everything was set for a perfect escape, but Socrates refused. He argued that breaking laws, even unjust ones, would corrupt his soul more than death could harm his body. He believed fearing death was completely illogical, since no one knows if death is good or bad. For Socrates, this trial became the ultimate philosophical examination. He famously taught that the unexamined life isn't worth living. Now he faced the greatest test of his own principles. Would he abandon his beliefs to save his life, or stay true to his philosophy? He chose integrity over survival, drinking the hemlock without hesitation. His willing death transformed him from teacher to martyr. His ideas became immortal, inspiring countless generations. Socrates proved that some things matter more than staying alive. True wisdom means living and dying by your principles. Here are 5 things you didn't know about Viktor Frankl's shocking discovery in Nazi concentration camps. First, he found that some prisoners maintained hope while others gave up, regardless of their physical condition. The difference wasn't strength or health, it was something deeper. Second, meaning can be found in any circumstance, even the worst suffering. Frankl watched fellow prisoners discover purpose in helping others, remembering loved ones, or simply choosing dignity over despair. Third, you cannot control what happens to you, but you can always control your response. This became what he called the last human freedom, the one thing no guard could take away. Fourth, those who have a why to live can endure anyhow. Prisoners with clear purpose, whether reuniting with family or finishing important work, survived at remarkable rates. Fifth, suffering becomes bearable when you find significance in it. Pain without purpose destroys, but pain with purpose transforms. These concentration camp insights now form the foundation of meaning-centered therapy worldwide. Did you know the most powerful metaphor about human nature came from one man's frustration with his students? Around 380 BC, Plato was teaching philosophy in Athens, growing increasingly frustrated. His brightest students couldn't grasp higher truths, no matter how clearly he explained them. He watched as they clung to comfortable illusions instead of facing difficult realities. Then came his breakthrough moment. He realized most humans live like prisoners chained in a cave, mistaking shadows on the wall for reality itself. Education wasn't about filling empty minds. It was about turning souls toward truth. But here's the dark twist he discovered. Most people violently reject anyone trying to free them from their mental chains. The freed prisoner who returns to share truth becomes an outcast. Enlightenment is painful and lonely. This single insight became the foundation for understanding human consciousness and why people resist growth, even when it would liberate them. Did you know that 3,000 years ago, ancient Hindu texts made a shocking discovery that modern neuroscience is only now proving true? The Upanishads declared that your individual consciousness is completely fake. What you think of as you doesn't actually exist as a separate entity from universal consciousness. These ancient sages used a process called neti-neti, meaning not this, not this. They stripped away every false identification with your body, mind, emotions, and thoughts. What they found was startling. Consciousness itself has no center, no boundaries. The ego is just a temporary construction, not fundamental reality. They proclaimed tattvam asi, meaning thou art that. Your individual self is identical to the cosmic self. Today, brain scans reveal the sense of self is generated by neural activity, not a fixed entity. The default mode network creates our ego illusion. Meditation practitioners report ego dissolution experiences that perfectly match these ancient teachings. 3 millennia later, science confirms what mystics always knew. The separate self is humanity's greatest illusion. Did you know that John Stuart Mill discovered the secret to making better decisions by embracing uncertainty instead of avoiding it? In 1843, Mill made a revolutionary breakthrough that changed how we think about choices. He realized that waiting for perfect information before acting actually leads to worse outcomes than making decisions with incomplete data. Instead of seeking certainty, he developed a systematic approach called utilitarian calculus. This method weighs uncertain outcomes by multiplying their probability with their potential impact. Mill understood that moral decisions must account for unintended consequences and missing information. He made uncertainty calculation essential rather than problematic. Today, successful investors and entrepreneurs use these exact same expected value calculations. They don't wait for certainty because they know it never comes. Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, and countless leaders make rapid decisions based on probability assessments, not perfect knowledge. Mill's counterintuitive insight eliminates decision paralysis completely. When you accept uncertainty as permanent, you become free to act decisively on the best available information. Probability beats perfection every single time. Did you know the world's most beloved spiritual poet was created through complete psychological destruction? In 1244, Jalal ad-Din was a respected Islamic scholar in Konya, known for his traditional teachings and scholarly reputation. He lived a conventional religious life, teaching students the proper interpretations of sacred texts. Until a wandering dervish named Shams of Tabriz arrived and shattered everything he believed. Shams asked him a devastating question. Who was greater, the Prophet Muhammad or the mystic Bayezid? This challenge destroyed Jalal's intellectual certainties, leaving him spiritually naked and desperate. The two became inseparable, but jealous disciples drove Shams away forever. The grief was unbearable. Jalal's world collapsed completely. But from this anguish came something extraordinary, ecstatic poetry that captured divine love itself. He became Rumi, writing verses that still move millions today. His complete ego surrender revealed a profound truth. Spiritual breakthrough requires the death of who you think you are. Sometimes our greatest destruction becomes our most beautiful creation. Here are 5 things you didn't know about Confucius that changed how humans build character forever. First, he discovered something shocking. Moral character isn't born, it's built through daily practice, no matter who you are. He created Li, ritual propriety, simple daily ceremonies and courtesies that train respectful behavior until it becomes automatic habit. Second, Ren, deliberate benevolence. Not random kindness, but planned acts of consideration for others' welfare that rewire your brain. Third, Junzi, exemplary personhood. Instead of just following rules, you take responsibility for setting moral examples that others follow. Fourth, Zhengming, perfect alignment. Your actions must match your stated values completely. No exceptions, no excuses. Fifth, lifelong learning and self-reflection. You never stop refining character because moral maturity is a journey, not a destination. These 5 principles shaped East Asian culture for 2,500 years. The revelation? Character development through deliberate practice proves far more reliable than hoping you're naturally good or following external rules. Confucius proved, virtue is a skill you can master. Did you know an ancient myth reveals the secret to overcoming life's greatest losses? Orpheus was the greatest musician who ever lived. His songs could move mountains and tame wild beasts. On his wedding day, his beloved wife Eurydice died from a snakebite. Refusing to accept her death, he did the impossible. He traveled to the underworld itself. His music was so beautiful that even Hades wept and agreed to return Eurydice. But there was one condition. He could not look back until they reached the surface. For hours, he climbed through darkness, hearing her footsteps behind him. Just steps from freedom, doubt crept in. Was she really there? He turned around. She faded into shadow forever. Orpheus learned what the Stoics taught centuries later. We suffer when we try to control what cannot be controlled. His attachment to reversing fate caused his greatest pain. True wisdom comes from accepting what we cannot change. Some losses teach us to let go.